In this class, we will continue with tables and learn how we can replace the HTML attributes with CSS in order to create an HTML5 standard table. Remember, the col span and row span attributes cannot be replaced with CSS, and therefore they are allowed in HTML5. So if you look at our table on the right and the code on the left, we have a caption, which is placed outside of the grid lines. We also have added a TH section. You will commonly put your TH row inside the TH element. This is a semantic element. It gives more meaning to the sections of the table. We then have a T-body section, and it is allowed to have more than one T-body. These elements, again, are semantic and can be used for purposes of applying CSS. We finally have a T-foot section, and this is where we have our copyright. You may not need a T-foot, and depending, you may not need a T-head, but you probably will. We also have several HTML attributes. We will begin by modifying the border. Notice that I have removed my border attribute, and I no longer have grid lines, and my table doesn't even look like a table. We will use the CSS Border attribute to make it look like a table. If we look at our CSS file here, and notice that I have included the character encoding, I am applying the border to the table element. Notice that it only encloses the table. Should I want the grid lines, I need to apply the border to both the TH and the TD. Notice now I have grid lines around my TH element and my TD element. If we look at the other attributes in our table tag, we will notice we have cell spacing. We will now delete that and see what happens. Notice that we now have the double lines again because we have cell spacing. We can do that by setting the border collapse property to collapse. Notice now we do not have the double borders. However, notice that our border thickness, if we were to remove the cell padding property, we can increase it using the CSS padding property. We can also remove the width from the table and the width from the TH elements and replace it with CSS. Here we see the width being applied to the table tag, the width being applied to the TH tag, and our table looks the same. Notice that our caption is pretty close to the table. Should we wish to add some distance, we can set a bottom margin for the caption. We can also center our copyright using CSS. So here we are using the caption element as an element selector. And notice how handy the T-foot element comes in as the beginning of a descendant selector to allow us to only access that TR that is a descendant of the T-foot element as shown in the HTML code. Structural pseudo classes allow us to access elements based on their structure in the HTML code. For example, I have tr:\nth of type odd, meaning every other one beginning with the first one. Notice that the structural pseudo class is preceded by a colon, and there must be no spaces to the right or left of that colon, or it will not work. It is saying that we will apply this style to the odd tr elements. Now notice that it applied it to two TRs in a row. Why is that? That is because this TR is the first of type in this parent. This TR is the first of type in this parent. This TR is the first of type in this parent. Because we have not specified any specific parent, it will access every TR that matches this structure. When I add a parent to my descendant selector, it will only access the odd TR elements that are inside that parent because this is a descendant selector. Another nice feature of the T-body element is that it can be used as a descendant selector. Therefore, we are only accessing the TRs inside this parent. Supposing I wanted to style my first row and my last row with similar CSS code. Notice my selector, th space tr:\nth of type. That is a descendant selector that is accessing the first tr in the th section. I then add a comma as I am using a grouping of selectors now. My second selector is tfoot space tr:\nth of type odd. So these two styles will be applied to both of these selectors. Notice again they are descendant selectors that contain structural pseudo classes. Structural pseudo classes can be very useful to style tables and also for the HTML document.